Welcome back to Super-Duperville, episode 19, Pluses and Minuses. I am Mike of Dragon Rider Gaming. Thank you very much for coming to check out a City Skylines episode. I appreciate it. Today, we are going to have 4 goals centered around the pluses and minuses. Number one of the pluses is that we're going to be putting in pedestrian paths into Positiville. These are going to be spaced out to help the Sims get around the town some, so that'll help. Number 2, another plus, is that we're going to be doing zoning for Positiville. So we're going to lay in some residential, some commercial, and of course the high demand of industrial to help drive up that area. Number 3, one of the minuses, and it's not a minus as a negative, it's a minus as in trains. We're going to put in train hubs. If you recall way back in episode 0, the intro, you know that one, we talked about putting in cargo and passenger hubs on the east and west outskirts of the city. Now we're going to do that finally. And number 4, the other minus, is the rest of the train line network. So we're going to put down several different cargo and passenger outlet points, internal network kind of established points, so that people can start getting around a little easier, start connecting the towns together, and allow the cargo to be transferred around town and out of town a little bit easier. So let's get to it. So we're going to start off by putting down some pedestrian pathways here. I have Anarchy turned on, and that way I'm able to put the entire length of the pedestrian pathway in place at one time, and it kind of it doesn't overwrite the main roads themselves. Doing this first is going to allow us to have the least amount of impact on the areas I already have zoned in for residential. As we'll see here on the north end, as we come to put these in place, we're going to end up destroying a few of the buildings in the process, but I wanted to get these in place now so that this is minimized. This north end here, as we put the paths in place, you can kind of see a weird thing going on here, and it's because of the angle of the hill. And I'll zoom in here, but you can see that there's a couple areas that have a little wonky edging going on, and I used the level tool to smooth out that area a little bit more, but I didn't get too extreme with it, but wanted to get a little bit smoother because it was pretty drastic looking for the houses and stuff as they get put in that area. Looking at the pollution here, we look at the Central Park area. I know it was real quick. And the way to counteract the pollution digging in is we're just going to replace some of these industrial buildings with with commercial buildings along the edge of it. Sweet, so this stuff will move in. Now it's hub time. So off camera, I made some changes as well to the road and the rail layouts, east and west ends of the city. I wanted to maintain a 25 unit distance from the road to the rail line coming in, and you'll see why this is later on. But I just wanted to demonstrate what I did and how I smoothed things out and where they were and where they are now. So we're going to start at the eastern hub first. The little couple units of measure here. The vanilla passenger terminal is 7 units deep, and the cargo terminal is 9 units deep by default. So I want to place them as close together as possible on the rail line that's coming through now, and keep those two rail lines very close together. So in order to do that, I also want to have each terminal side by side, so that as the cargo / people are brought into the city from the outside connection, they leave that terminal and transfer to the internal network terminal, and do that somehow so that it's an easy transition. to do this, what we're going to need to do is start along the roadside, and we're going to measure up 18 units from the road itself. And what that's going to do is keep that 25 unit distance, because the passenger terminal is 7 units deep, and we're going to put that on the south side of the rail. And then from there, we're going to go up to the north end and go up 16 units. And the reason it's 16 units is because 7 for the passenger rail, 9 for the cargo terminal, and that should help align things. On the ends here, I know I want to go underground because that main rail coming in is going to be level with the ground, but just temporarily I put something in place just to get some measurements going. And we want to come back, or these are going to go out 12 units down, and then an additional 3 units to make the corner underground. So a total of 15 units to the side, so that's why I measure it back. Then we just do some measurements and placement to figure out, okay, where's the cargo terminal going to head up, and then find kind of a center point. And this center point is going to be important for later on. But I wanted to find a center point and say, okay, 23 units is the center point. Now I can establish where are my edges for my main leg, and there we go. We have a north and south main leg edge. So because there is a little bit of a bow in the rail line here, I just select a bunch of nodes here and do some adjusting. Get these cleaned up a little bit, just so it's a little bit straighter coming in and out of the hub area. Next, we drop in the cargo terminals and the passenger terminals, aligning them with the very ends of the roads. Early on, I knew that I wanted to make some money for this whole expensive process as well. So one way to do that is to add a toll booth to the area. So you have the vanilla toll booths, which are really, really huge, and they take up a ton of space. But I also downloaded these ones from the workshop called ERP. And they offer a couple different sizes, and they're one of the few ones on the workshop that are an actually functional toll booth. A lot of the other ones are just cosmetic, you know, they just look nice. And this one's fairly small, and it has a 2-lane one-way road. But I noticed early on here that I may get the road going the right way, but the signage is backwards. So I thought I made a mistake there. I'm like, well, maybe I did that wrong. Nope, I did it right, and it ends up being that the asset itself, where the entrance it says it needs to go, and where the signage is, it's just that the signage is back. Or no, actually the road is backwards, because it always comes with an arrow saying where vehicles are going to enter the asset, and they have the road in reverse from that. So I'm just fooling around trying to figure out how to center this up, get as close to center as possible. And then I had the bright idea, okay, why don't I just use K-Light's tool and highlight the road and just make my own road from this, putting the signage in the correct direction. I later discovered that this will not work because everybody's just going to pass through this area, but because for some reason destroying the actual road or replacing the road with a different road removes the functionality of the toll booth. I'll likely go back in the asset editor and fix this asset myself, and then just drop a note to the author. I didn't really see how old this mod is, so I'll have to check that out and see. Also, I noticed that I'm using the wrong road. I picked the 2-lane, 2-way road instead of a 2-lane, 1-way road. With the toll booth in place, now it's time to make some Sims pay for the privilege of walking from one platform to the other. So we use this trick that I saw. I've seen a couple different modders do it, or YouTubers do it. We put in just a city walking path here, more or less. And you notice that I used the highway with rails in the toll booth area, and what that'll do is it doesn't allow for Sims to walk across that area. So if they want to walk from one terminal to the next, they have to walk over, take the walking path that we are going to charge them boatloads of money for. So next up, we're going to put in the end caps. So they're going 12 units out, 3 by 3 on the curves, and then just 10 units between. Now we're going back to that center point I mentioned earlier, and this is important because we want to have a way to get into this hub area quite easily, and obviously we have the toll booth on the south side. So what I do is I just create an underground path and run the underground path on out to the highway, and just do a simple straight line highway entrance hub connection, or ramps, I'm sorry. Noticing as we're putting these in place, you'll notice that the highway itself is a little bit of an angle. I thought I had it straighter, so I just go back and I'll fix the highway, make it a little bit straighter coming through this area, just to make everything kind of even Steven. Okay, so there is our cargo hub. At least it's in place. Let's get some water to these guys. And the last thing I do here is I want to connect up the rail lines now. So that rail line that's going through the middle we're going to get rid of. But I want to make sure that the rail line's coming in kind of at a center point between these two ramp points, I guess you could call them. And because the passenger terminal is a little bit shorter of a train and connector from the cargo terminal, I just extend the end of the passenger terminal rail out 2 units. We go over 11 units, give it a little bit of a bend so it bends properly into the area. Attach the other one, and then delete the rail line that's going through the middle. Same thing on the other end, and we're good to go. Last but not least, I turn off the passenger terminals because these things are costing us $960 a week by just sitting there on, and we're not going to have them active right now until we get other passenger terminals put in around the city. But the cargo hubs we're going to leave on because they will start being utilized in the very near future. Next up, we're going to put in the Positiville train hub. And to start this off, what I decided to do is these underground pass-throughs that go underneath the Central Park area are going to make for a perfect central point for all the industrial areas around them to come out to, or to come into. And then we're going to make this little underground pathway sneaking out to the southwest corner of Positiville. And this is where we're going to put our cargo and passenger hubs. This little two-way alleyway that we put in place here, the purpose of that is to have just a small road going down to the passenger hub. Then we just create our loop for the cargo hub. Figure out where to put that in place. There will be a noise overlap for the cargo hub reaching into the residential zone area, but for the most part it should not be too devastating. It's just noise pollution. It's not ground pollution. Since there's going to be very little traffic coming out of that lower section from the passenger terminal compared to the cargo hub, I want to make sure that the cargo traffic has priority of just moving in and out as smoothly as possible. Again, we're just using a standard passenger terminal. I could have put something different in here, but for right now, just going with the standard one. And although I'm not going to allow passenger vehicles to float around in this area, I do want to give it a little loop around for when the garbage trucks or police or fire need to come into the area. So just create a little loop. And now we're going to put in another money-making hub for Positiville. And what we will do is restrict vehicles on this main road to only allow SOS vehicles and recycling vehicles so that they can pick up the garbage and such. Therefore, everybody else that's coming from the passenger or going to the passenger terminal will have to come around and either walk down the road or walk along this pathway, which should make us a lot of money. That vehicle that's coming in right now is a road maintenance vehicle, so that doesn't count. Get these guys some water. And lastly, we're going to connect up the rail lines. So we're going to do these underground, I think, this time, just so that it can connect in very easily. If I tried to do this on the north end with these so close, I think it's far too tight to try and get a train length in between each one of these to allow it to not bunch up. And if you don't know what I mean, I talked about it in an earlier video. But you want to make sure that the entire train length between your intersections can fit. And the one you want to judge it off of is the cargo train, not the passenger train. Passenger trains are much shorter. And if you have an above ground metro, it's even shorter than a passenger train. So you got to know your audience in a sense and know the length of the vehicles that you're dealing with. Now the intersection at the very end there where they're coming into the station, I'm not as concerned about, because that one's not going to get bunched up, unlike these ones out here that if you have a half a train on and it needs to stop for whatever reason, you want to make sure that that train can stop within the intersections, in between the intersections. So you just make these nice long lengthy intersections and you won't have any problem. Turn off that passenger terminal for now as well. As we can see, they're rocking and rolling, but my toll booth isn't making any money. I don't know if I realize this right now or not, but it shows that there's 0 cars that went through last week. We'll come back and fix this later. Lots of people want to use this place. It's awesome. This is a great, great start. And every single one of those trucks, I'm losing out right now, but every single one of those trucks that are coming in or going out has to go through that toll booth at least once. So that is money! Money for us! Okay, so let's work on the western train hub, and I'll be right back. While putting in the west hub here, I noticed that that 90-degree corner at the center point is not going to be very efficient. So I changed both the east-west hubs to an angled ramp using the highway entrance ramp. And that just allows the traffic to flow a lot better. So this is when I realized that the East Hub toll booth was not working. To get this working right, I use the base asset facing the wrong way as it is. And then on each side of the toll booth, I add in some 2-lane, one-way highway roads with sound rails. And the purpose for these is that it prevents the Sims from walking across, but adds a visual effect that I like. And we put these in place drawing some roads out, adding some extra nodes here, and putting these in place, and they look really good, I think, going alongside there. I just wish I could change the road that's underneath the hub itself. I have to adjust the walkway here a little bit because I think it was too tight to the center and was probably broken, but that should work now. Now we just need some people! Next up is to put a cargo terminal at the south end of Stutopia. I could not find an elevated cargo terminal in the workshop, so we're just going to use a standard one and ramp the rails up to the train loop that's going around Stutopia. So for the flow pattern here, I chose to add the entrances and exits at the center points of the outer rings between the main road and sub-road. This distance is 34 units from each intersection, but it's hard to do it because we're dealing with the circle, right? So eventually I get there. But so we bring these roads in 11 units, curve it by 2x2, and then connect the road with the curve tool. Next up, I center the cargo terminal on the sub-road above. And then for the rails, I use the curve tool and I go out 6 units, raise it by 4 units, go to the next half of that 12-unit length, curve it, raise it by 4 units, and I hold down control while angling that curve because it allows you to, it reduces the snapping strength, essentially. And then switching back to the straight tool, I go another 6 units up 4 to get to 12 units in height, and then just link it into the main road. Lastly, we're going to add some toll booths. And yes, that's plural. We're going to put 2 toll booths in on this one, because why not? Get them coming and going, I say. Now we got the problem with the trees on the road again, but those will eventually go away as soon as we load another save. Oh, silly me, I didn't put a toll booth in up here. So we're gonna add one in. I like making that money. It's easy money to make. Every single truck that passes through has to pay it. It's just simple. Alright, so finally we're getting around to adding some passenger terminals. We'll add one on the north end and the south end of Stutopia. I reviewed several of these on the workshop and wanted to go with an elevated passenger terminal of some sort so that it's nice and even with the upper rails and then the people just walk out the lower section. Of these ones, for this area, I end up going with just a more rustic one. I played around with a few of these just to see how they looked and how they would fit into the area, if at all, well. And it just seemed like a single rustic one was about the best approach. It's an all brick building, and it just seemed to fit with the theme of the area better. And I add in some of my own development here. These are called modular parking lot assets, in which they range from 1 space deep to 8 spaces deep, and you can plop them in however you want. Some of them have standard parking spaces, other ones have handicap parking spaces, other ones have electrical parking spaces, and yet other ones have a combination of all of them. So just a way to build a parking lot in a different manner. And they have left and right aligned things so that they can look like a regular parking lot when they're done. Of course, all these trees in the middle don't really help things. Finally, I decided to put a fence around this parking lot. It doesn't work out the way I want it to. It aligns to the parking lot decently, but when we look at the back end of it, it ends up being very, very jagged because it's going along the back side of the property and doesn't really line up properly against the pavement. As you can see here, weird angles, bumping up and down the entire length. I might come back and try and fix this and or eliminate it. We'll see. Now we can set up a line from the east terminal into what I call a central point, but it just allows people to get into the city, and then from that point they can transfer to other locations. We'll do the same thing on the south side. Now for a super fast tour from the East Hub to North Utopia. I just like the way that when it approaches the city here, you get to see the city in the distance come closer and closer. That's cool. I really like that. I would do a little bit more zoning over in Positiville. The demand seems to be hovering pretty steadily between 30 and 40% now. So that's good. We had a serious drop-off and serious detriment happen after getting rid of the starting block. I knew that was going to happen, in a sense, but still just never sits well, right? Oh my gosh, our first passenger hub has arrived. Let's see what these guys do. Looks like everybody's walking out. They're coming towards our walking path. Come on, people. Make us some money. Now, at first it looked like they were skirting the edge of it, so I moved this entrance in just a hair, but I don't think that that's the case. I think they were just trying to walk down the side of the road and realized, oh, we can't walk through that toll booth area, so we got to walk around. But that made us $1,000. Boom, just like that. super quick. That is awesome. So that paid for itself 10 times over right away. And moments later, here they come, coming towards Positiville, excited and urgently giving us some more money. So that's going to happen more and more as we continue to grow our city. And that's going to be awesome. It's going to be a real good money-making, consistent money-making opportunity, because every time they enter the gate from one side or the other, they're paying us 20 bucks. So that's going to do it for this episode as we start out in our eastern train hub and start taking a look out over Positiville as everything that we've added on this episode. Speaking of the episode, if you like what you saw here today, please drop a like and a dislike and a comment. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification. And as always, I thank you guys very much for watching. Next episode, a little preview. We're going to do some expanding, we're going to do some digging, and we're going to do some parking. Until then, this is Mike of Dragon Rider Gaming. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. And we'll see you in that next episode. Bye-bye, everybody.